Hey guys, welcome to the last review of Linux Ubuntu 11.4. Let me start off with the fact this review is going to be split into two different sections, as YouTube videos on my account can't seem to go for longer than 15 minutes. So the first section is going to be based on the operating system itself, as the first review was. As a final review of the operating system, it's pretty much just a follow-up of the last review I did, but a little bit more critical than anything else, as I have had the pleasure of using the system for about a month now rather than 2 to 3 hours. So I'll be covering the three main points, being the system itself, such as its usability, functions, more in-depth review of Unity, the performance being the RAM usage, processor usage, and more broadly how the system runs itself as just real-time using, I guess. And then I'll be moving on to the more critical analysis of the bugs and the numerous crashes I've had. The second review is going to be all about the software that comes on the system, problems with it, and my final views on the system, etc. But we'll focus on the system itself for the moment. So the system, it comes as an all-round package. What you see in front of you is really what you get. You are expected to update the system as soon as you install it, which has happened on all of the Linux systems that I've actually used, but this one I couldn't really use the operating system on the internet or anything, or load certain programs, which was a bit annoying until I actually updated it. And there was a really noticeable bug with the system that does rear its ugly head, where it would lose the plot if I connected one or two external monitors, but this mostly gets ironed out as soon as you update it. It does kind of happen every now and then, which is kind of a bummer. As well as, like, if you have just downloaded the operating system and you're prompted to do something near 300 megabyte, 400 megabyte update, and you haven't got that much internet usage and waited for their net to reset just so you could download the damn thing, aka me, it's a really big pain in the ass. But that was the install. Wasn't a problem, but it was a bit annoying for me. From using the system for a while now, I've come to dislike it a little bit. It's becoming slower and slower, and things just do not work the way they should. The software manager takes way too long to boot up for my liking. As you can see, it's still loading now, and I'm running on a P960 1.8 gigahertz. It isn't the fastest quad core out there, but nonetheless it's a quad core, and it's a fusion environment as well, which makes me question really what the hell is going on behind the scenes in the operating system. As generally in my time of using Linux, it doesn't get slower and slower. I've never come across Linux distribution that gets slower and slower, which this one just seems to do. It is still a very usable system, don't get me wrong. If you are updating your operating system from a previous Ubuntu environment, it's pretty safe to say you'll feel straight at home. That's where I differ, I guess. Being a Linux Mint user for so long, I came to this operating system to see what the changes were and to see if I could be persuaded, and honestly it hasn't worked the tiniest bit. At first the signs of the system was elegant, bright and very speedy, which has turned into an utterly slow mess of applications thrown together, with bugs that should have been taken out before it was even released. We'll get more into the bugs and everything later. We'll jump straight into Unity. It's easy to say that the best thing about this system is the Unity Desktop Manager. The way it utilizes the system and is embedded is absolutely amazing. Oh, there are a couple of photos of mine from a party. Um, but the desktop manager works brilliantly, seeming as the only application is the only application that hasn't slowed down on me. It is starting to lag a little bit in the UI, which is kind of questionable as well. You probably can't see it on the video, but when you're kind of a gamer like me, you can even pick up on the little FPS drops. So I do, however, wish that the application recommendations down the bottom, as you'll see here, would be sorted a little better in the and by application review score, as sometimes it feels like they're offering me applications that look like they've been developed by a 3-year-old with some Python knowledge and the GIMP application. I haven't really got more to say about the Unity Desktop Manager. You can see how it works. If you're a Linux user, you can see what it does. You can see how it handles it in comparison to, so maybe GNOME or the KDE Desktop Manager. The performance of the operating system, as you would have gathered, has turned into an absolute brain-cracking mess of a system that is supposed to be modern and elegant. The word modern, to me, would justify a neat environment with some beautiful eye candy, which Ubuntu certainly has, but also the ability to maintain speed and utilize modern-day processors to squeeze the very best out of any system, which Ubuntu 11.4 does not. My system has slowed down to times to the point where it hasn't crashed, but I did need to do a cold boot to be able to do anything. Sometimes the operating system won't even boot, and I have to fuck ass around just to get the wireless working. I mean, if I'm on a plane somewhere in the middle of fuck knows where, travelling hours on end listening to a screaming baby, I don't want to have to sit there and constantly reboot, doing memory checks through the BIOS or bootloader just to get into the damn document which I wish to go over. The desktop manager is the only thing that hasn't lagged for me other than the UI, and every single application has lagged out and nearly crashed on this system, so not so good for productivity. The first bug I ever came across in the operating system, which I regrettably do not have a picture to show you, is when I plugged in my external monitor into the HDMI port and the system just went absolutely ballistic, sending all these weird colours over my laptop monitor and not sending a signal out to my HDMI device. And it needed a solid reboot. This happened 3 times before it decided to stop, and then it decided to start displaying onto the monitor and doing the weird lines, and then it decided to fix itself. So I updated it, and it happened once or twice after that, but it seems to be ironed out now. It doesn't happen anymore, but it doesn't save your display settings, which is a real pain in the ass for me, because when you've got a laptop or even just multiple monitors and you're trying to switch through them on a regular basis and it doesn't save your settings, it can become a real problem. Just trying to think. Another bug, I've so gladly come across was, note to all of the Ubuntu users there, do not turn off the system while it is booting. It will rarely forgive you, requiring you to reboot into Windows, checking the disk, then doing a memory check before you're allowed to use your system again. Otherwise it will just get halfway through a boot and freeze on you. So I've experienced anyway, and I will upload a photo of this after this video, showing you the codes and everything that it gave me on the boot screen. But now everyone knows the problems with Linux and the wireless cards. Well, this one's the worst I've come across, absolutely the worst. You can see up here that the wireless is actually working, but never in my life have I had to do so much stuffing around with an operating system to get online. I mean, I think I would have more success if I whipped out my old Nokia 3310 and fucking hoped that I could play Snake for long enough. I might get an Easter egg on a Betaphone web browser and connected to 4G. Okay, so maybe that was a little bit far-fetched, but you get the idea of just how annoying it can be. I have to boot into Windows every single time before I can use it, as Ubuntu likes to turn my wireless hardware switch off, and because my switch is actually a keyboard key in the laptop keyboard, drivers aren't installed. I can never turn it on unless I boot into Windows. To turn it back on and boot into Ubuntu and make bloody sure I don't turn it off again, disconnect it, or even put the computer to sleep, it will just turn the wireless off. So, but that's irrelevant if you can't actually get into the system, and it's a luck of the draw when you're trying to get into the operating system. It will load for sure, yes, why not? But as soon as you click on login, it hangs. I've experienced this multiple times, and it will do this every time you turn it off until you boot into Windows and run a check disk again. And I don't know whether this is because the fact it is installed alongside Windows, but it is sure as hell want to get fixed soon. As searching the problem on the internet comes up with millions of people with the same problem. So some needed to go into the command line and logging in that way. I couldn't do that. I just found the best solution was going into Windows and running a check disk, and everything seemed to be fine. So I don't know what the go is with that, seeming as Ubuntu is my main operating system. So unfortunately I've run out of time for this one. You can see the CPU distribution is still pretty good, but I'm not running it idle at the moment, and I still haven't taken a picture, but it is sitting at a neat 800, approximately 800, which I guess if I wasn't encoding as well, that'd probably drop back down to 500 to 600, which isn't bad. It's nothing to sneeze at for sure, but that also makes me question what the hell is going on with the fact that I've got another 3 gigabytes of memory and 80% of the CPU that isn't being used, and yet all these applications take so long to update. Oh, not update, sorry. I'm looking at the update manager. To actually boot up and everything. So, we'll quickly jump into this now that it's popped up on the screen. The update manager is requesting me to look at the new Ubuntu 12.04. I don't know how much of an update that's going to be, but we are getting all these updates of 52, 126 megabytes to be downloaded. So that on top of what you're going to need to download when you first get the system, that's going to be around a 500 megabyte update, unless you wanted to just jump straight into this. So good luck. I regrettably say that I do not recommend this system, which is, like I said, really regrettable, as I really did like this system the first time I used it, but I don't know what's happened, but it's just getting slower and slower. So, we'll see you in part 2.